I'll go ahead and introduce us here. We've got another episode of Town Hall with my dear friend and now mayor of Durham. You were not mayor the last time we did
That's
this.
right.
So,
That's exactly right.
Steve Schewel, I'd love to jump right in and talk a little bit about homelessness. Maybe give, if you will, a little background about Durham's efforts around homelessness.
Yeah, so there's a tremendous amount of effort that goes into it. One of our signal achievements in the last couple of years has been being certified by the federal government as having ended veterans' homelessness. And that means that if you're a veteran in Durham and you report you're homeless, you report yourself to the VA or one of our homeless agencies, one of the homeless shelters, for example, you will be rehoused with a voucher in Durham within 30 days, which is awesome. When you think about homelessness, one of the few things that the federal government will fund is services for veterans. You don't just need a roof over your head, you need services to go with that roof. If housing is going to be permanent for people who are homeless, services have to come with it. And so the federal government will fund that for veterans, but not for many other people. And I think we should all be really proud of it, but it's only a piece of the puzzle. There are a lot of definitions of homelessness. So I used to be on the school board, and there's a law called McKinney-Vento, which is a federal law which defines homelessness for schools.
Okay.
And that's a much larger pool of homeless people. So kids who are couch surfing, who are moving once a month, who are, they're not homeless as we might think of it typically.
Sure.
But in actuality, they suffer many of the problems that homeless people do. They don't have the stability. They might have a roof over their head, but they're not in a shelter.
Home.
But it's not a home.
Exactly.
It's not a home. Well put. Exactly. But we have another kind of way in which we count homelessness in Durham, which is that every year all across the country on one night in January, often a very cold night, there's a point-in-time count. And volunteers in the community go out and they count everybody homeless in Durham and all across the country. I go on the count, and I've been a team captain for the count for the last probably 5 years because there's one area of Durham I've gotten to know really, really well, part of downtown, where I know where every homeless person is and where they sleep and those who are sleeping outside. So we do the count that night. We count people who are outside, and we also count people who are sleeping in the shelters.
Okay.
Here's the good news. Relative to most communities, Durham doesn't have many people outside.
Okay.
So we might have 50 to 70 people outside. Even one person is too many.
Sure.
But relatively, our homeless population might be on a given night 700, but most of those people are in shelters. So the bad news is we got 700 people homeless.
A lot of people in shelters. Yeah.
And so the efforts that we have to make is to move those people into permanent housing. Some of the people who are in a shelter are only there for a week. They lost a job. They're moving to town. They have nowhere to live temporarily while they're looking for a job. Somebody got sick in their family. They're, in a difficult situation. They're there for a week or a month. Some people are there for months. And then there are the chronically homeless people who are in and out of shelters and living outside a lot, usually with mental illness or some sort of substance, addiction problem. So there are several kinds of populations, and we have shelters that work with families moving forward, works with families with children. Urban Ministries and the Durham Rescue Mission work, mainly with single individuals. Some families there as well too.
Okay.
My two big aims, and I think that our community has embraced this in the next couple of years. One is to figure out how we can end children's homelessness.
Okay.
We ought to have no child homeless in Durham.
What's the breakdown there of, the 700 people that you mentioned? Of those people, how many of them are children, or your estimate?
My guess would be 50.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's higher
at any
than
one
expected.
time. And of course, there are people cycling in and out of that. And so one of the things that I'm going to be doing is convening, not just in Durham, but also in Wake County and Orange County. It's a regional problem. Getting the appropriate people from the counties, the mayors, the county commission chairs, and staff from the counties together to talk about how do we build permanent supportive housing, and then how do we supply those services. We can do that. We can build more permanent supportive housing and supply more services. There are places that do it. It's expensive, especially without the Medicaid reimbursement that most states have. The other thing, though, that I really should mention, Housing for New Hope does this as well, is it's what's called rapid rehousing. And this is not for people that are chronically homeless, but this might be for families, or it might be for people, it might be for single people who are able to get themselves on their feet but need a start in doing so.
Yeah.
And Rapid Rehousing, we support this with your tax dollars from our dedicated housing fund, for the city taxes. We have used $200,000 each year for the last few years, and then we usually add some of our federal housing money, maybe $100,000 to that. And that last year rehoused 184 families.
I imagine where a lot of these families and their situations fall short is they have a potential plan in mind. They have the will to want to remedy the issue or kind of get back on their feet, and just don't have the foundation again to make that possible. In a lot of cases, they're just someone that
Yes.
life didn't go the way that they
Exactly.
expected, and
Yep.
so
Some
yeah.
people are just a missed paycheck away from homelessness. You know, there's a lot of that. One of the things I think we ought to keep in mind, and I'm you're kind of making me think about this, Justin, which is for the people who are deeply troubled in some way with a significant addiction issue or significant mental health issue or disability, that's one kind of homelessness that we need to deal with. But that's the minority of people that cycle in or out of homelessness in
Okay.
Durham in a year. If everybody in Durham could get a good paying job, most of our homelessness would be wiped out.
Yeah.
And I said these numbers the other night, and I think they're really important in my State of the City address, which is there are 15,000 families in Durham who are severely housing burdened, meaning they're paying more than 50% of their income in housing. And of those 15,000 families, 7,500 of them are families making less than $20,000 a year. So if you're making less, and they're families of
whole family.
4.
Okay.
Yeah. Families of 4.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a family of 4 making less than $20,000 and $10,000 of it goes in housing, you've got $10,000 for a family to afford to live. Well, of course your chances of getting evicted are very high because it's really going to be hard to pay the rent. And then the other thing is, how do we make a plan to end children's homelessness in Durham and be serious about that and figure out how we can make it so that if you're a homeless family in Durham with children, that you are rehoused within 30 days. That should be our goal. And I'm looking forward to working with people on it.
Great. Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time
Thank you,
to
Justin.
do another one of these. These are always a great part of my week. So this has been another episode of Town Hall. We appreciate you joining us for our first episode of the new year. If you ever have any questions, comments about the show, please hit us up online. You can follow us at Clarion Content on Twitter and on Instagram. You can email us directly, clarioncontent@gmail.com, with your questions as well. And you're welcome to hit me up as well at Buddy Ruski. That's BUDDYRUSKI on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you, Steve. I look
Thank
forward
you,
to the next
Justin.
one of these.
Me too. A lot of fun.